Now, if there's one Star Wars TV show that a lot of fans are really looking forward to, it's of course the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series, and yes, even the Ahsoka Tano TV show, which by the way, that is all slated to release by 2023. We got the Kenobi show just around the corner, that's going to reprise, of course, the roles of Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor as both Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way, guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, we are not only getting close to the full-length trailer for the Kenobi series, which, by the way, is all finished and completed. It's all set and ready to go by this May, in early May to be specific, which is just a couple of weeks out. But we also have the Ahsoka Tano series, which, by the way, is just beginning to get into pre-production and really getting the ball rolling with that show. You know, John and Dave really have a lot on their plate to really make sure that the new Star Wars universe is really going to kick off very strong, not just this year, but also in 2023, which is also going to be a very important year for the franchise by Disney and Lucasfilm, without a doubt. Now, with that being said, however, what's even all the more exciting is the fact that we also have Hayden Christensen beginning to act in the role of Anakin Skywalker once again for the Ahsoka Tano series. He's already beginning to train for his role for a lot of scenes that are to be filmed by this June, so keep that in mind as well. However, when it all dwindles down to actor Pedro Pascal, alright, the guy who plays Djarin, aka the Mandalorian himself, a lot of fans have been very much questioning his role as an actor and his role as a person in the Star Wars universe. We already know that he's not all that big of a Star Wars fan to begin with. However, on top of all of this, what's really intriguing has a lot to do with exactly what's been going on with Pedro's view of the entire franchise. Now, with both Disney and Lucasfilm now focused on their new Star Wars projects like Star Wars Ahsoka and even The Mandalorian Season 4, creators Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are beginning to develop their new projects that will be unveiled at Celebration this year. Now, it's described, however, that recently Pedro Pascal has been involved in quite a bit of drama related to one of the projects that are currently in the works by John and Dave. However, in a recent interview where Pedro Pascal got to talk more about his involvement with The Mandalorian and his view of the Star Wars fans when promoting his newest movie, Pedro went on to state, "If there is one fan base that is so overwhelmingly negative, it's Star Wars fans. I mean, I love some of them, but many of them are just so pressing on us actors to where it makes us feel like we are walking on glass, you know? It's painful on set, wondering what the fans are going to say next." And that's the biggest problem with a franchise like this, is that it's the fans' fault as to why there is such a divide within the community, and even on set many times between the creators. It is 100% the fans' fault for making it harder for the writers and even for the actors to create these stories properly. Now, this community only makes it our, of course, job even harder, and I feel that what they just need to stay quiet, of course, about is all the negativity and get over the fact of what we are actually about to do with the overall Star Wars universe and what they assume is woke this and woke that. It's all annoying and draining to all of us actors, and it's got to stop like now. It's my job to do what I can to bring djarin to all of you. It's not up to the fans. These stories are not for the fans or for the community, it's for the brand. It's what people need to understand as well. Now, let me just stop right here for 1 second of what Pedro Pascal is saying, is that essentially he is putting all the blame on the fandom for having an opinion, for being very passionate about a franchise, for loving a franchise for so many decades now. It seems that this is a problem with a lot of actors out there like Freddie Prinze Jr., Pedro Pascal, and that's just to name a few. Those are just two big examples that are attached to the Star Wars world. You know, they were involved in, you know, a lot of Star Wars projects. You know, you got Pedro with the Mandoverse, you've got Freddie with Star Wars Rebels, and it just doesn't seem to stop. I mean, this is just Lucasfilm in nature. They tend to actually have people like this that put all the blame on the fans, they put all of the pressure on the fans, and they say the fans are actually the ones, in fact, putting the pressure on them. Where in reality, if they just played things right, if they just stuck to what common sense is embedded within the Star Wars philosophy, then a lot of fans would be very much happy, right? And that's exactly what John and Dave have been doing and have been trying to do. And it's always, you know, a problem at some point in time. There's always somebody that's going to have an issue with the fans, and Pedro, well, is just one of them. You know, that's the overall problem now. So, moving on from all of that, alright, he goes on to say that we are not catering to fans, we are not lending our part in this large world, that we are telling every single year, and if we listen to the fans, that's when everything begins to fall apart. I am sure of that. Because then you have this point in time where writers begin questioning themselves and questioning their creative path on these stories. The fans are toxic in nature and need to be ignored in order for the creators to really create a proper story for the franchise. I will never forget that when we were making Season 2, John and Dave kept on listening to the fans and what they wanted in the show. And all I could say to myself is, you guys better be careful, because that can be a tricky thing. It's playing with fire. You need to be extra careful for the whole entire time, or things just tumble and falls apart. Sometimes I believe that actors should have more involvement in the creative process of these stories and where they are going. If I had that opportunity, I would without a doubt steer clear from toxic fans in nature that pose a risk to telling a great story. At least that's how I see it. It's not about the fans, it's about the need to understand of expanding the Star Wars universe overall and what we're actually creating. These large brands that have been around for decades, and it's something that fans will never understand. So, the thing that Pedro Pascal is trying to really put out there right now, and this is another fine example of how people like Pedro don't actually understand what Star Wars really is. They're viewing this just as a brand. They're just viewing this as a franchise, just like it's a thing that belongs to a production company. It's more than that. It's a lot more than that. This is something that people grew up with throughout the generations. This is something that has been around for over 40 plus years, and it really makes you wonder exactly why in the world people like Pedro, people like Freddy, can't seem to come to grasp with that or understand that. And there's a lot of, things rooted to that, for sure, there is. It's because, number one, they're not really Star Wars fans at the end of the day. I mean, these are actors that got gigs or jobs, and they're doing their part into the Star Wars universe. I mean, it's kind of like Daisy Ridley, she got involved in the sequel trilogy. She's not a fan at all. She doesn't really know anything about Star Wars at all, period. But she did admit that recently she's been reading up on a lot of the Legends material, a lot of the canon material, to kind of better understand the fans and where they're coming from. And like I say, I mean, people like Pedro don't even really take the time of day to really kind of just dedicate a little bit of their time to understanding all of this at the same exact time as well, right? So the other thing is this, is that when you look at Pedro Pascal, obviously this is somebody that does not care about the fandom. He's putting all the blame on the Star Wars fans for raising their opinion about, Disney not necessarily taking control of the franchise with the sequel trilogy movies. And he's talked about this before in the past, that he believes that the sequel films were actually very well done by Disney. Well, of course he's going to say that, right? Because he's hired by Disney. So if you guys like the sequels, that's all fine and okay, but when you look at those films, there's just something about them that lacks the storytelling that George Lucas had in the prequels and in the originals. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.